Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell. In this video, we're going to look at recruitment and selection. If you think back to previous videos, we looked at human resource planning, which is, looking at the future human resource needs of the organization. Then we've done a job analysis and job design. So we've done a job analysis to figure out, what is the actual job that is required. Out of that came a job description, which is the actual roles, responsibilities, and duties of the particular job. And we also got a job specification, which is looking at, who is best fit for the job, what kind of skills, qualifications, knowledge, all those type of things would be required. So with those two documents, then we can go ahead with recruitment. So we're still in the establishment phase of the employment cycle here. That's really important that you know that. So we're still in establishing. And what recruitment is the process of finding the best qualified pool of applicants for a particular job. It's often mistaken with hiring employees when people talk about recruitment. Often they will be talking about that, but the actual term recruitment is getting a pool of qualified applicants that we can then sort through and really choose the best ones that will fit our organization. So it's not hiring employees, that becomes at a later stage. It's getting that pool of applicants, which is really important you understand that, because it's been an exam question in the past, and some students wrote the wrong sort of things, spoke about more selection rather than recruitment. Now, recruitment can be internal and external. It's important that you know what both of those terms are, which we'll get to in a second, and also the advantages and disadvantages of each of those. So as I said earlier, job description and job specification are important tools during the recruiting process, because without job description and job specification, the human resource manager won't really know what exactly involved in the job, or they won't know who's best fit for the job. And if you're going to get a pool of applicants, it's hard to find a qualified pool of applicants if you don't know those things. So first of all, internal recruitment, that's where the organisation looks to fill a job vacancy from within the existing workforce. So they're looking at the employees they already have. Often it might be a promotion. They think it can, put an offer out there, say that, this job's available, anyone from within wants to apply, feel welcome. So they can do that through notice boards, through emails or anything like that. The advantages of internal recruitment is that you've got prior knowledge of the candidate's abilities, so you've seen them work before, you know what their capabilities are. Also, employee knows the culture, and the organisation or the human resource manager also knows if they're a good cultural fit. It can improve morale, because employees realise that, they're hiring from within, you're giving us opportunities for promotion. That can help improve morale, and it's cost effective. We're not spending lots of money advertising and those type of things, so it can be quite cost effective. The disadvantage is that you have a smaller pool of applicants. When we get into external, obviously you can put an ad out there and get lots of applicants, whereas you do it with internal, there's normally a smaller pool of applicants to choose from. It can be a lack of outside influence, because sometimes it can be good to get someone new in that's got outside experiences, and they can bring in new, fresh ideas, and that often won't happen with internal recruitment. And also, sometimes there might be a few people internally that apply for a particular job, and if they don't get it, because obviously there'll be some applicants that won't be successful, they can become disillusioned and hurt by that. So that can hurt their morale. External recruitment is where the recruitment's done from outside the organisation, so they're trying to fill a job vacancy from people outside the business. This is, advantages, almost opposite to the internal one. So a larger pool of applicants here. Whatever method we decide to use, there's normally a larger pool of applicants to choose from, which means that, hopefully we can find really good people to bring into the organisation. New perspectives brought from the outside, because they've obviously got outside experiences, and the external candidate is more likely to have the required skills, because what you can do in your job specification or in your advertisement, you can specify that they've had, for example, 3 years experience in a similar role. So they, hopefully they may have done a similar role before, and you can actually ask for that. Whereas internal recruitment, often they'll be promoted into a particular position. Disadvantage is that it's time consuming to go through all the advertising, all the interviews and those type of things, sorting through applications. It can be really time consuming, potentially more costly. Two ways, advertising is obviously more costly if that's the road you go down, or through a recruitment agency, you have to pay the recruitment agency. Also, during times of interviews, there's more downtime, less productivity during that time, and it might be that the organisation is interviewing more people than what they would be with internal recruitment. Uncertain of how the employer will perform. Sometimes, no matter how good your processes are in terms of recruitment and selection, that there's no real way of 100% determining how well the employer will perform. So for example, if you're going to interview an employee, which we'll get into selection later on, but if you're interviewing an employee, then they may interview really well but still perform really poorly. So that can still be an uncertainty, and also can limit career advancement for existing employees. If you're bringing in external employees all the time, then that can obviously limit how many promotions are available to those internally. So common recruitment methods, advertising, online employment index, that's things like seek.com, mycareer.com, those type of places. Recruitment agencies can either be government recruitment agencies or private recruitment agencies. So government ones are normally used for lower skilled workers, and private ones are normally used for more professionals. Notice boards, newsletters, that's often an internal type thing, or could be notice boards and newsletters at universities. Headhunting is where you actually go out and seek an employee from another organisation and say that we want you, and there are headhunting agencies that will go and select a few that they think would be a really good fit for your organisation. University networks, going to universities and offering them jobs, I suppose, getting them to apply and trying to hunt the best university graduates. Word of mouth, simply using your networks through word of mouth, and then professional associations. Each sort of industry or profession often has an association linked to it to try and improve the profession, and those associations can often help with recruitment, getting a pool of applicants together for you. Now we move on to selection. So now you just imagine that we've got a pool of applicants to choose from. Selection involves choosing the candidate that, not tat, but that best matches the organisation's requirements. So here the job specification is really important, because that forms a selection criteria that will be used to assess different candidates. And those that best meet that selection criteria obviously will move through the selection process and be a really good chance of being hired by the organisation. So selection is an important process as it decides who becomes a team member, and the decisions that you make there, that an organisation makes there, obviously can affect performance, it can affect culture, can affect results, all those types of things. Now it's important that you know a selection process. There's no specific process listed in the study design, but this is the one that we use. So first of all is to screen and shortlist, which is comparing applications against the selection criteria, narrowing down, sorting through them, narrowing down a shortlist that you can then interview. And then once those few are interviewed, interviews firstly are asking a series of questions to try and gather more information about the employee. The employee also tries to gather more information about the organisation, about the job. So they're finding out about each other to see whether they're a good fit for each other. Then we can do background checks where we contact references, past employment, and all those type of things, again to find out more information about the employee. Any other tests, this is where we can conduct any other tests, could be medicals, aptitude tests, anything that's necessary to see whether they actually meet the requirements for a job. And then the last step is to notify the remaining applicants, whether they've been successful or unsuccessful. So that's a selection process that we go through. As I said, it completely depends on what you're doing, but because there's no selection process in the study design, but it's important that you do know a selection process. Just a little thing on interviews. Job interviews are still the most commonly used selection technique. They provide an opportunity for the applicant and the organisation to learn more about each other. It takes time, so drawback is it takes time, and obviously there's no guarantee it will predict future performance. As I said earlier, some people just interview really well and don't perform, and doesn't mean they're a really good employee in terms of performance. And the opposite can happen too. Some people will be really good at their job, but they don't interview well. So, so it needs to be other methods used also in terms of background checks and those type of things. Common interview methods, just in case you were ever asked, but structured interview where there's structured questions, unstructured where pretty much the questions that are asked are just going through conversation, depending on what comes up in conversation. Stress interviews where you put the employee under real stress to try and find out how they perform in that. And group interviews can be often used, to determine leadership qualities where there's groups of potential applicants together. And you see how they perform and see whether, for example, they show empathy or leadership qualities, anything like that. There's lots of different interview methods that can be used, more than those, but there's some really common ones. So just to recap, once the human resource manager has the job description and job specification, which they get through a job analysis or doing a job design, they can conduct recruitment. There's internal and external recruitment. Make sure you know the advantages and disadvantages of each of those. And then selection, we've got a selection process, which again, I'll stress that there's not a specific one in the study design, but this is the one that we use, where we screen and shortlist the applications, and then we interview the remaining shortlist, do some background checks, any other tests, and then notify and offer the particular job, which we'll get into in the next video. So for questions, activities, or more, then come on over to teachingbubble.com.